Okay, 40K enthusiasts, we're going to take a look at, in this podcast, getting the most out of your HQ, getting the most out of your command choices in Warhammer 40,000. And I'm utilizing my terminology here, this kind of internal dialogue of how I classify and utilize my HQ units. Naturally, of course, I would like you to take these ideas, look at your own army, look at your own meta, and evolve them to fit perfectly for your player personality. And we're going to follow up in part 2 with this idea of developing your 40K personality. We're making our way through kind of the gates, the gateways of developing in 40K, getting us to the point where not only where we can win, and of course have a good time playing 40K, but also being able to adapt to the unknown as you kind of move out and explore some of the different areas in 40K, being able to adapt very, very quickly. Now, when we're building up our collection, because a number of us are coming into 40K from different entry points, some of us have established armies, some of us are new to the game, some of us are working on a second or third army, even though we were positive we were always going to play that first army. I have always said a great way to kind of change your army and get a different flavor is to explore the different command and HQ choices in your army. You can have your tactical marines, you can have your land raider, you can have some assault marines, you can have a couple of other units and always play them. But by swapping out chapter master, librarian, chaplain, things like that, you can, with the addition of one model, $10, $15, $20 GW prices, retail versus secondhand, you can change the tactical scope of your army. That's why one of the things that I recommend, where once you've built up your base forces, even if there's an HQ choice that you love to play, that you must always play, adding more is a great way to diversify and get some different options when you want to try something out. A perfect example is with my Eldar Warhost. I always play a Farseer, the psychic support, the abilities of the model, but I do have an Autarch in a number of different configurations. And every now and then, just for something different or just to test my tactics, I'll swap that HQ in and out. So how do we utilize this? I define an HQ as 3 types: active, passive, support, and how we're going to utilize them on the table. Some HQ choices, depending on your army, there might be a little bit of crossover in both. I mean, certainly Space Marines have that crossover, while Xenos tend to fit one of these 3 defined roles. But the idea here is to utilize your choice and get the most out of it. Active. I guess we should talk about from the perspective of Space Marines, right? Because I've always said there's a good chance you, listening to this podcast, listening to this vlog, I'm willing to crunch the numbers and bet that you play Space Marines. If you don't play Space Marines, you're a diehard Eldar fan, diehard Necron Dynasty fan, there is a 33% chance within the next year and a half you will be playing Space Marines. You will start a second army and you will play Space Marines. And even if you do not do that within a year and a half, it's like a secret GW formula, I am willing to bet with 99% certainty that someone in your gaming group plays Space Marines. Space Marines are the currency that we can talk about and utilize to understand and play tactics and then fit them out into our army. And in my own collection, playing Grey Knights, playing Black Templars, when I think about a new Tactica or I think about something new I want to try, I often turn to my Space Marines and say, okay, how would I do this idea on the tabletop with Marines? And then I kind of poured it over to my Necrons, to my Chaos. Well, my Chaos are kind of Marines. And then, Necrons and Grey Knights and all that type of other stuff. Tyranids, and kind of see what we can do. So active seems simple. You have your HQ choice. Preferably it carries a Thunderhammer. It goes out and it thumps stuff. In the shooting phase, or more likely in the assault phase, because generally in the assault phase you can deal more damage, you are going out and going to cause as much problem, as much trouble as you can for your opponent. You are actively going out on the table, looking to engage units, looking to engage models, and take them out and put them to the power sword. Now, we're going to need some investment, right? Because you're paying the points for this model. How are you going to get there? What is the plan to get there? Do you need some sort of transport? As long as you're spending the points, can you use like an honor guard or some sort of accompanying models that can move in with it to take advantage of that? And then if you beef it up to the point where it's so insane, do you need to take some other units? Like an example, I utilize Assault Marines, 2 small groups of really, really stripped down cheap Assault Marines because they have the speed to keep up. And if you try and send something into suicide or stop my active HQ choice, then I'll kind of break off and intercept. So it's a little bit more complicated than just selecting one model, point, click, send it in. We want to get the most that we can. Now, the other duality here, of course, there's two methods of thinking. There's 2 thought processes. The first is turn 1, you need to be moving out. It's like Autobots, roll out. Turn 2 and onward, you want to be mixing it up either in the shooting, in the assault phase, causing damage and keeping an internal dialogue of how many points you've racked up. And you're just going to do that for the entire game until that HQ choice is put down. And the effectiveness is twofold. How much, it's like, very necromonger-like. You keep what you kill. How much damage have you caused over the number of game turns? And secondary, how have you used that HQ choice, that active HQ choice, to influence the game? To influence this idea of, hey, my opponent, Fritz, he had to pull off like 2 or 3 other units and deal with this HQ choice. Or he was going to shoot into some other units, but he had to pile on the dice because I was very aggressive in a good way with my unit. And I kept Fritz occupied for like 2 turns of shooting. So it's not just a hard kill count. It's also how much have you done in terms of affecting the other models of your opponent. 99, okay, maybe 95% for those of you out there that are Math Hammer oriented. 95% of the time, this is what we want to do, how we want to utilize this piece. But every now and then, the converse is such that the mission dictates it might be a sudden death mission. And now, there's lots of great ways to play 40K. I know we have the standard missions. I enjoy playing custom missions. I enjoy playing a variety of multiplayer missions. Personally, and that's before we even layer in tournament play and things like that. Because personally, I believe, look, we're spending a lot of time building, painting, collecting, immersing ourselves in this 40K narrative. Take advantage of that narrative, right? Achilles is like, immortality is yours. Take it. So be open to exploring different missions, even if it's not your favorite mission. Tactically, it's going to challenge you. Even if your group establishes a meta where it's like, hey, every Thursday, these are the missions that we play. This is what we do. This is how we roll. Explore something different. Be open to tactical experiences. Even if you lose, you've still learned something on there. We're pushing our growth forward. So every now and then you have that sudden death mission where an example would be take and hold the center. You have some sort of flag or non-moving relic or point on the table, and the only mission condition is who is holding that piece of the table when the game ends. Well, in that case, the end of the game has the HQ, the active HQ, being more powerful. Because think about 40K, at whatever level you're playing at, every turn you are getting weaker and weaker and weaker because you're losing models. Your opponent is causing damage. Likewise, hopefully, you're doing the same to your opponent. You're getting weaker, slower, hopefully, because you're using your tactics to slow down that loss. You make a couple of mistakes, it goes faster. But how many games have you played? I know I've been there, where we're moving into the end game, and the battlefield is just carnage, right? Everything is just a mess everywhere. I've got like nothing left. I've got maybe 1 vehicle. I've got some TAC Marines. I've got maybe a couple of Terminators, furiously running from one side of the board to the other. There's just nothing really left. And you're looking around and saying, if only I had something powerful. If only I had something crazy like a giant thunderhammer, I would just smash whatever's left of my opponent, because likewise, they don't have much on the table. Imagine how you could secretly deploy your HQ choice. It would just dominate. So there might be some missions where you don't want to lead with it. You want to hold back. You want to keep it to the end game, right? Start of the game, mid game, end game. And then at the end game, just unload and unleash. So that's the active. I'm actually going to break this up into 3 parts because I think it'll be easier to navigate in the archives. And I'm pushing these all up to the archives here in the 40K playlist. And it'll also allow us to go into a little bit more detail and at least keep the podcast down a little bit for those of you who stream it and download it. It'll be a little bit more manageable. So you want to play an active, or I should say alpha, right? An active HQ choice. What do you have in your army to do that?